Hi guys, in this video I'm just going to work out the 4 examples that were on the Google Slide assignment from Tuesday this week. So if you didn't get to see us going through those in class, you just have the answers. If you need to go back and look at them, that's fine. Alright, so we are using a sign chart to solve polynomial and rational inequalities. So first of all, our inequality has to be in factored form, and it has to be set to 0 before we can begin. So this one is ready to go. The first thing that we need to do is find our critical values. Critical values make every factor 0. So for this factor, x equals 4, x equals -1, and x equals -5. Those are my critical values because they make the factor equal 0. So the next thing that we want to do is get those on a number line. So just make sure you go from left to right. All right, and I think it's a good idea to go ahead and label negative infinity and positive infinity on your number line because we will probably use those for some of our answers. All right, the next thing that we have to look at is the inequality symbol. I want these to be less than 0, not less than or equal to 0. So these numbers make it equal 0. So I need open circles on my critical values for this one. All right, and I just like to kind of section my number line off because what we need to do now is pick a number that's in each section, plug it in, and see whether our answer is going to be positive or negative. That's how we're going to figure out our final answer. So it doesn't matter what number you pick as long as it's within the right interval. And we don't actually have to work out the answer. I just need to be able to tell if it's going to be positive or negative. So I'm just going to pick -6 as my test number. So if I plug -6 in, -6 minus 4 will be negative, -6 plus 1, and -6 plus 5, those will all be negative values. So my final answer would be negative. So we just put a bunch of negative signs across there to let us know that that interval is negative. All right, between -5 and 1, I'm just going to pick -2. So -2 minus 4 would be negative. That one would be negative, but that one would be positive. So if I were to finish, this would be positive. All right. My test number for this one is going to be 0. I try to use 0 if I can in an interval. So that will be negative, positive, positive. So this would give me a negative answer if I were to multiply those out. And then let's just do 5. So 5 minus 4, 5 plus 1, 5 plus 5. So that would be positive. So now we have to answer the final question. My goal was to find the intervals that made this less than 0. Numbers less than 0 are negative. So the answer to this question is all of my pieces that were negative. So that would be from negative infinity to -5. Parentheses because it's an open circle. That little U symbol just means I'm about to have another answer from -1 to 4. So that is the answer to that inequality. All right, question number 2. Again, I'm finding my critical values. I'm putting those on my number line. This one has more, so I'm going to need a bigger number line. So I'll have -3, +1, +4, and 0. All right, and this time around, I want them to be greater than or equal to 0. So I can put closed circles on all of these critical values because they make the inequality equal 0, but for that symbol, it's okay. All right, and again, I'm just going to pick my test values and see which intervals are positive and which ones are negative. So -5 plus 3 would be negative. -5 minus 1 would be negative. That would be negative. And -5 is negative. So if I multiply that all out, those would be positive. This just says -1. So -1 plus 3, -1 minus 1, -1 minus 4, and -1 itself. So that would be negative. Between 0 and 1, I'm just going to pick 0.5. I'm running out of space here. So that would be positive, negative, negative. So if I multiply this out, those would be positive numbers. 2. So 2 plus 3, 2 minus 1, 2 minus 4, 2. So that would be negative. And let's test 5. So 5 plus 3 would be positive. Positive, 5 minus 4, and 5 itself is positive. All right, so this time around, I'm looking for intervals that are greater than or equal to 0. So those are positive numbers. Too many E's in positive. So my positive intervals are from -infinity to -3, bracket because it's a closed circle, from 0 to 1, and from 4 to infinity. So this one has 3 intervals. All right, for rational, your critical numbers are factors that are in the numerator and denominator. So this is linear, so those are the factors. So I have a critical value at 7 and at 1. Now this is just less than 0, so those would be open. All right, and again, I'm picking test numbers. So 0. So 0 minus 7 would be negative. 0 minus 1 would be negative, and a negative divided by a negative would be positive. So if I choose 5 as my test value, 5 minus 7 would be negative. 5 minus 1 would be positive. So that would be negative. All right, 8 minus 7 would be positive. 8 minus 1 would be positive. So less than 0 is my negative section. So the answer to this one would be from 1 to 7. That's the only piece that's negative. All right, so question number 4. I can tell from the numerator, that being x plus 6, I'm going to have a critical value when x equals -6. But my denominator is not in factored form, and we can only find critical values from the factored form. So the first thing I need to do is factor this. So factors of negative 24 that combine to negative 5 will be negative 8 and positive 3. So I have a critical value at 8 and a critical value at negative 3. So I need to put all of those on my number line. All right, now when you're going to do your open circles and closed circles for rational, remember that mathematically you cannot divide by 0. So no matter what this symbol is, any critical values in your denominator always get an open circle because your denominator can never equal 0. So 8 and negative 3, those get open circles because they came from the denominator. But negative 6, it's okay if the numerator equals 0. And since this inequality is or equal to 0, negative 6 is going to get a closed circle. All right, so again, the denominator is always open. We cannot make the denominator equal 0. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick negative 10. So negative 10 plus 6 would be negative. Negative 10 minus 8 would be negative. That would be negative. So that would be negative. And pick negative 5. So negative 5 plus 6 would be positive. Negative 5 minus 8, that would be negative. So that would come out to be positive. I'm going to pick 0. So 0 plus 6 is positive. 0 minus 8, 0 plus 3. So that would come out to be negative. And just do 10. So 10 plus 6 is positive. 10 minus 8 is positive, 10 plus 3 is positive. All right, and so this time I want my intervals that are greater than or equal to 0, so those are my positives. So this one, bracket on negative 6, parenthesis on negative 3, parenthesis on 8 to infinity.